Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/AHTT. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. From the Gotham Podcast Studio, Ain't Hard to Tell podcast, episode 99. Dexter Henry, Bryan Fonseca. And we haven't in a while had a guest, but we've got a guest here with us. Our guy, Jeff Eisenband. He's the NBA 2K League Insider on-air talent at MSG Networks. Jeff, what's up, man?
I didn't realize I was holding down the last double digits here. You know, this is the
end.
This
is 9-9.
Well, how you guys celebrating the next one?
Oh,
the century mark.
We're still figuring
We're
that
still
out.
figuring it out. We won't let everybody know how we're doing. But you know what?
We might just have mad people up here. So if you want to come back in a week.
Studio audience, 100
I like
people.
that you took the value of what you were to this show and being like you're the last nine, the double-digit number.
Yeah.
That's historic.
It's a mark.
It is a mark.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is. A lot of people, I keep saying this, and I've been saying this since we got to like 50. A lot of people don't get this far in podcasting.
That is true. So
like I know people that have started a podcast and stopped after 14 episodes, and they're at big networks.
Yeah, I wonder who you're talking about.
Don't worry about it.
All right, Jeff. So you're doing good, man. We wanted to have you up here for some time to just talk about, the esports is such a huge world, and you do stuff with NBA 2K, that league and the Insider, and just talking about that. But before we get into that, whenever we have fellow journalists up here, we always like to say, how'd you get into the game? How'd you get to where you are now? Everybody's got a story. What's your story?
Well, Northwestern for starters.
Well, but it's like, yes, yeah, we were talking about that before, and that helps. I'll tell you that. But it was something. I mean, for me, it was something. I always go back to sophomore year of high school. Walked into Mamaroneck High School up in Westchester.
So you're originally from New York.
So yeah.
Okay.
So I'm from
Westchester
Westchester.
guy.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that I actually didn't know.
That's Section 1, League 1. Mamaroneck, Scarsdale, New Rochelle, White Plains, Mount Vernon. So
I've covered
y'all got football up there. Yeah.
I actually did a game with you guys when I was doing some silent reporting for Files this year. So did some football.
When you play NCAA football 13 and they have the generic high schools in there and you make one out of New York, usually the teams that you play against are from Scarsdale and places like that.
Okay.
Fun
take
fact.
note. Throw back that video game.
Fun fact, because we're gonna get into video games and you know how I am.
Oh Lord. Sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, so I always go back. I walked into a video class one day, first day of school, sophomore year. On the easel, there was, an ad for public access television to call the homecoming football game that year. It was going to be the first game they were going to put on our public access, TV in Larchmont Mamaroneck. So I jumped on that. I did play-by-play. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Called my first. They were the first touchdown. The extra point came in. I said it was good. It was no good. Like you couldn't see on the side. There's so many things you could nitpick from that. But
we've all been there.
But I always say like that was my first mark in this is what I want to do. Started doing high school journalism stuff. Had my mind set on Northwestern from the Wilbons and Greenies and just watching them like this is the place to be. This is where you can get a journalism education, like a high-level journalism education, and be around Big Ten sports. There are only a handful of schools like Northwestern, Syracuse, Missouri that have that big journalism and big sports resume. So I was kind of locked into that. I started doing, so my old job before I was doing the freelance stuff, I worked as an editor for the postgame.com, which was a Yahoo sports site at one point. And it was I started doing stuff when I was a senior in high school. And I get to freshman year of college, and I tell my editor, I said, look, I'm going to school. I want to keep freelancing some stuff. Well, I'm a freshman, 18 years old in college, but I need to focus on class. It's like, all right. I get a call in January, and he says, hey, can you get to Indianapolis next week? I'm like, why? He said, we got an extra Super Bowl Media Day pass and Super Bowl pass.
Oh, boy.
And I'm like, and I just come out of, like, I totally botched a journal, like a paper or something right before that. And I was like, I got to do this, I don't even have to hear the details. So we figured out the megabus schedule and stuff. I learned how to get from Chicago to Indianapolis, went to Super Bowl Media Day, covered that, all of your journalism heroes are just walking around.
Yeah,
this
it's crazy. The first time you do it. I've done 2 Super Bowls. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And I remember hearing Rick Riley's voice, like, this is old Rick Riley, before he went a little different. But I remember hearing his question, like right next to me, hearing him ask a question. It was like, I've heard that voice so many times before. And so I did that, came back to, went to 3 days of class, wrote stories while I was home, came back for the actual Super Bowl. Giants beat the Patriots, and I remember coming back, and I got that winter quarter at Northwestern, I got an A- in a journalism class, and the professor said, you would have got an A if you weren't so focused on things outside of class. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, what do you not want me to go cover the Super Bowl? I was like, I don't regret that. And I was,
hell no, A- is still 90, 92. Who cares?
From there,
clearly he did.
Yeah.
Wait, were you like an honor student?
No, I only like 1 out of 12 quarters in my time at
Northwestern.
So.
Jeff, were you disappointed that he didn't value necessarily the experience that you were getting at the time? Because we know how valuable that is while doing your journalistic studies in school, just getting that hands-on experience.
Well, I think this was, and so I'm 26, so this was 2011 to 2012, and I think for the journalism industry, there was this mindset of like, where are things going? There was still a lot of traditional teaching as things were changing. And I kind of, in my eye, I looked up and I was like, wait, I can get these opportunities to write for all these places while I'm still in college.
I had a similar thing when I was in college.
It's like, why would I not do that?
We're in school around the same time. So.
Yeah. I stopped doing sports articles for journalism classes because I was like, why am I burning my sources on work that isn't going to be seen
or paid?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I mean, the long story short here is that after that, I would say my mentality was, I don't care about grades as much. I just want to graduate.
Exactly.
I'm here,
and I bet you your GPA was still solid.
It was fine. I'm not like
it was fine.
I honestly don't even know. Like, I literally have never checked. I've never sent anywhere. For the kids out there, like, this is nothing. GPA did not matter in any way.
As somebody, I know I was 10 years older than you, but
GPA probably didn't matter as much.
No. Like here's the thing. Let's be honest. Everybody here can say this because we've all worked in this profession. Have you gone for a job and actually got an interview, and has anybody said to you, hey man, what was your GPA?
Never.
It's never mattered.
And if they ask, I'll say it. Like, it's fine.
It hasn't. What's mattered to me more has been, even in college, you spoke about the experience of being able to get that hands-on Big Ten schools. I went to, at the time, Big East school. Getting that experience was fantastic. Going to those games, doing those things, covering that. That's what made me the journalist I am today. And
and you were at the height of the Big East basketball too.
The height.
DeJuan Blair.
That was actually DeJuan Blair came my senior year. So I was like Carl Krauser, Chris Taft, Brandon Knight.
Chris Taft, who was white in NBA 06 for some reason. That was weird. Yeah.
Only you will remember this from it.
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird.
But yeah, DeJuan Blair and those guys were like right after I graduated in 05. So. But yeah, I was really at the height of that. And so timing sometimes matters. Placement matters. What you do with the opportunities like you did. I just want to say, I'm glad you took that opportunity.
And you also still got an A-.
Well,
it's not like you got an F.
Jeff, you should be proud of the A-.
It's not like you got an F. Like, instead of a 95, I got a 92. Whatever.
It was,
and I still got to go to the Super Bowl. Who was the professor?
You don't want to say,
right?
I don't want to say.
All right, cool. That's all I want to know. That's all I want to know. Because I asked him because I know he's not going to say because it doesn't matter. Right?
Well, I'm sure that guy was a great professor. You know what I mean?
Or woman.
Or woman, sorry. Apologies to that. I'm sure that he or she was a great professor, but...
Or not.
You don't know. It could not be either. Either way, you found the value in what you needed to find at Northwestern.
Well, I found that, and I don't want to like harp on all of just college and stuff like that, but it was also, for example, we had to pick a track at Northwestern: news, broadcast, magazine, or marketing. And
they had to put you in a box.
Well, listen, I came in and I was I had my mindset on broadcast, right? That's why I went to Northwestern. I called those games in high school. I anchored the school news in my high school, and I got there and I looked around, and I'm sure you've especially had experiences with this where every kid had to do an internship where they would get placed in a small market to do TV news, and it made me it rubbed me a little the wrong way because I knew that I didn't want to be a stand-up TV news, traditional news broadcaster.
Yes.
And on top of that, I didn't want, like, I had some guys that went to minor league baseball and, did those Cape Cod League and stuff. And I just, in my mind, I was like, I want to use the internet. I'm looking at Twitter and Instagram and Facebook blowing up, and I'm like, this is my avenue. I feel like I'm good at this. I feel like the sort of snackable content is where I want to live. So I picked magazine, not because I wanted to write in magazines, because I saw that as closest to digital at the time.
How did I want to stop you there with that? I'm so glad you brought that up because I think this is very interesting to talk about right here.
And this is what, 2011?
This is
that was high school.
In like 2012.
So we're talking about a little after.
Yeah.
But when did you graduate from Northwestern?
2015.
So 2015 you graduated. So we're 10 years apart. You graduated 10 years after I did.
Well, we're 1 year apart.
But what I find interesting though in you saying that, I'm going to get to a question I have for you, which is you looked at this and said, hey, this is where the game is going. I feel like when I graduated in 2005, I saw that, but video online was still like just starting, right?
Yeah, you were in a different era.
And I got in this time where I got some of my first jobs were like working for the New York Post as a video journalist and doing stuff like that. But people thought it wasn't going to last. Like there was literally people who told me this isn't going to work. I had a guy from Fox.
That people consuming news on their phone wasn't going to work.
Yeah, literally told me this. I was at a Giants press conference doing some reporting on their first playoff run where they beat the Pats. And the guy was like, oh, you think this is going to work? Like this kind of reporting thing? I find it interesting that in 2011 or 12, whatever you said that was before you graduated, you saw this and then said, hey, I want to try to move this way. My question for you is, you saw this and it must have took a lot of discipline to say, hey, I believe in this. But did other people say, no, you need to do this. You should be in broadcast. You should move this way.
Yeah. No, there were people that tried to direct me in a certain way. I had someone, so you had to do a required internship at Northwestern where they would send you somewhere to one of their kind of affiliates. And one thing, they really wanted to send me to Sports Illustrated, and Sports Illustrated had been my dream. Like literally my dream. I got into this, back to Rick Riley, who'll bring it up again. I literally would come home Wednesday and read the back page. And like that's what that was me in middle school wanting to do this. And I said I knew I had this thing with the post game going where I'd been doing stuff with them all through college, and they had this Yahoo Sports affiliation, and I knew I had a job lined up if I just wanted to keep going there. And I didn't want to rub anyone the wrong way. And the other thing was like, I knew if I went to Sports Illustrated, I was going to have to work behind people for a long time. Like I was going to be an editorial producer before I'd actually be producing content. And it's the same thing. I visited Syracuse as a high school student, and the guy at Newhouse was like, you'll be a sports broadcaster if you go here. You won't get to go on air probably till your senior year, but we'll put you in a corner at the Syracuse basketball games, and you'll have your tape that you can send out to everyone. And Northwestern was, it's a great journalism school, but not as many sports broadcasters go as Syracuse. So it was kind of like, they're like, yeah, just come on in and we'll throw you on air. And to me, I was like, I want the opportunities right now, because I think there's a more horizontal opportunities than there used to be, as opposed to like you get a job at one place and you just have to move up vertically forever.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'd say people didn't like some people just were. It was a more nervousness of let me do the same formula that I've been told works. What I always say is, so Twitter. When I got to Northwestern, my first class, they said we suggest you should start a Twitter. Like that was fall 2011, and when I left my last quarter in 2015, spring 2015, there was a Twitter class offered. So to me, I tell people that's the fact that whatever journalism education like you got in 2016, you got in 2005, I got in 2015. It's all totally different. Economics, you might get the same 4-year education year after year after year. Journalism, like kids coming out now, imagine they got TikTok in their class right now.
Right.
Yeah.
The game is always changing, right? And so I think what I look at it now, and Brian and I always talk about this, I think the journalists who think ahead, see how they can move into spaces are the one that can do better. I think you did it when you were in school. I did it when I was in school. Brian did it. We were thinking like, how can you move in this different way? Because my route and what I do was, you go to a small market, you work your way up, you move this. I actually said, like you, I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. And I didn't do it. And I have other friends I know who haven't done it. And it's worked out kind of okay.
Well, I feel like you're doing a ton of different stuff, whether you're talking about reporting on FiOS or then all of a sudden AccuWeather.
Right. So I'm doing national weather reporting, and I never worked in like a small market. I've only been in New York, and I've done more of my career is digital, as you kind of saw where it's going. And I try to tell young people now today is that there's a lot of opportunities digitally. You don't just have to be on TV.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes you have to break the mold out of people's head that they'd still think like, hey, I got to be on TV. I have to be on traditional TV. What I mean,
especially in an era where we're cutting cable.
Right.
And that's a normal thing.
I think you
now.
were thinking it's really refreshing to hear that even 5-6 years ago, you were thinking, hey, this is not, you knew exactly what you wanted to do, which I think is huge in being successful and just saying, no, I don't fit there. It's okay for me to go this way. Kudos to you.
I mean, you could also start a YouTube show. You
Yep.
could start a YouTube interview series.
Yep.
You already
shout out to
know.
The Hustle.
Side Hustle season
Side
1
Hustle.
out now. You already know. But it's true. Like you can do all of these things. And I mean, I started writing at a newspaper when I was in college, and I knew when I immediately took that job, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be doing this for a long time.
Right.
Like for five, like in 5 years, am I still going to be writing at a newspaper?
Some
Probably
people hope
not.
for that. I just think
I hope
Jeff
newspaper.
was saying that.
But I say that saying that I hope newspapers last so that people can make their livings off that. But it's like every other year you look around, and it's not even just newspapers, but just outlets in general. They're always cutting, and a lot of the jobs available are temps and freelancing, and we're about to get into that.
Well, one thing I'm always thinking about when taking these gigs, and all of us on the freelance sort of side, I think it's something to take note of.
Well, Dexter not no more.
But
he still do.
I still freelance. Right. Yeah.
But knowing, like, when I'm taking something, I'm thinking also, where is the long-term value in this? Where is something that, like,
In freelancing?
yeah, well, each thing I do, each gig I'm saying, like,
yes.
where are we able to, where's this going? Like,
Right,
what is this going to be, where's this going long-term? And also for me, like, is this something that's going to show up that could be on Facebook or Twitter or something like that? What is the viral potential versus what is just the immediate
It's funny
potential?
because when we
Great thinking.
when we do certain things that are going to go on TV, I always ask for the YouTube link. Always. Because it's like, this is how most people are going to watch it. Like, yes, it's cool that you're going to be on linear TV at a specific time, but realistically, people aren't going to gather around and watch you, especially if it's at 5:30 or 6:30 in the late in the afternoon or whatever.
Most of the content I produce for AccuWeather, I would say most of the views and the connectivity of it and how far it can reach obviously is through Twitter or Facebook or YouTube
or LinkedIn.
LinkedIn,
which is an underrated social media sort of outlet that people don't use.
Or the fact that even the company I work for, they share their content to other different affiliates, so there's a better reach for you to be seen more than actually on the TV network.
Because we're on our phones all the time.
When you see the value in that, you're like, okay, that works.
But you also know if there's a hurricane or if there's some big weather incident that you're at, more people are going to see it than on a normal day.
Yes.
Like, I'm thinking about, and we could bring the 2K League into this, like, I was doing stuff the whole year last year, right? And all of a sudden the finals are going down, and I'm thinking right before, I'm like, a lot more people are going to see this because now all of a sudden we're going to get, 10 times the viewers today than we've seen. So there was almost a little pressure I was thinking in my mind of, it really doesn't matter what I've done all season. Like, people are going to see what we do today.
Yes. And I think whether it's sports, weather, whatever, everything, you have that moment, like hurricane season and weather, that's kind of like the Super Bowl time. Like you got to be on your game. You got more eyes on you. You're right about that. And so you just kind of like adjust to those times, right? And it's a greater chance.
You got to be prepared for it.
You got to be prepared, but it's also this great opportunity for your content to be visible to more people. So coming out of Northwestern, you kind of told us what your dream was. You kind of really wanted to be at Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, no.
Did you ever think that you are where you'd be now, where you're covering 2K League? Like, did that like did you the esports?
Yeah.
No.
Were you ever like, I'm gonna be covering esports? Did that ever cross your mind?
So
it also isn't shocking given, just how futuristic you probably were back then.
Well, this is what I'll say. And so I came out and I was working as an editor for the post game right at it. So which allowed me, also goes back to the sort of being a jack of all trades. Like, I could write about any sports.
Yeah.
I could do it in any sort of medium, whether I wanted to. Most of it at the beginning was writing, but eventually it was a lot more in video. We tried some audio.
Yep.
Social. There was a lot of social freedom, so I was able to do a lot of things. But right out, I had some people that were like, "Yo, you should cover esports." They're like, esports is blowing up because now we're going back. This is fall 2015, winter 2016, and I looked at the landscape. And you had said you covered an ESL thing at one point, and I know that everyone talked about esports sold out the Garden. Esports, League of Legends sold out the Garden. Most people in the sports world and the people that we probably run into circles with have never played League of Legends in their life, nor come close. It's a PC-based game.
I've never played it.
I always tell people, the kid in your class that was playing World of Warcraft when you were in high school and you didn't really know what he was talking about, he's watching League of Legends. There's such a, because, oh my God, they're selling out stadiums. They're making X amount of money. Sports owners are buying in. People wanted it to be the same sports crowd, and it's like, it is not. It is so different. So a lot of those combat games, fighting games, were a different audience than sports fans. So I told people at the beginning, I was like, I just don't see this as like, it's not the same audience the way you want it to be or think it is. So I kind of backed away at first, and then I came into, started running to circles with people from the NBA. I started hosting content on the NBA Twitch channel, which, by the way, was the greatest gig in the world. I played video games with NBA players and asked them questions from the Twitch chat.
That's pretty dope.
It was amazing. Yeah. And it was awesome, and I met people, and, we had some there was a lot of Reddit moments, like Lonzo Ball couldn't hold a Nintendo 64 controller. I had to explain it to him. That was my crowning achievement and all of that. But from there, the 2K League started, and the same people that were running it moved over to the 2K League, so I said I want to get involved. I know that there's something here. I'm, at the time, 24 years old. I played NBA 2K my whole life. Like, I fit the sweet spot of this. Maybe I'm not, I don't have an esports background yet, but I fit the sort of video game sports crossover right here.
Yeah.
The first day, my job was to interview the players on the red carpet the first day of the draft after they got drafted, and it wasn't live, and just the best clips. The NBA was going to share the footage with the teams, and the best clips they were going to put on social, whatever. And I asked all the players, I was like, what were you doing before? And the stories that I got from these guys who had never been interviewed before. You mentioned before people trying to reach out to you to get hype around them before. Like, we didn't know any of these guys, and they're like, I was a truck driver. I was working in an Amazon factory. I gave my 2 weeks notice last week. I'm playing video games for a living. I made it, Mom. Like, one guy worked in the State Department. One guy was literally had like a finance job and quit to go play. There were so many stories to tell that at that point I was like, this is such a fertile ground for storytelling. Like, we deal with, and I know, I'm sure you deal with a lot of pro athletes. I know Brian does. Yep. Like, guys, NBA players they start getting interviewed when they're 13 playing AAU. Right. Like, they think they're legends when they're in their teenage years. Yeah. These kids literally were pulled off of wherever the minimum wage jobs they were playing. They were all playing video games, 8 p.m. to like 4 a.m. to try to log those hours we were talking about. Yeah. And so now all of a sudden they're in this league being employed by NBA teams that are now putting their brands on the line with these guys, and they're playing a live competition broadcast to the world. So,
for money.
That's
an important thing.
For money.
Too.
And
for money.
For bonus money on top of that. Yes. So it's like not a fixed salary. It's like you gotta really grind it out. You gotta work as a team. So there were all these things that were popping up that for me, I was like, all right, this now people have been saying get into esports. This fits me.
So what I hear in that for you was that the storytelling aspects around it is kind of what really drew you in, right? The fact that there are these interesting stories with these people, and we can tap into who they are, human, and how they train for these games and play and all this other stuff, which is, it's nice that the storytelling kind of drove you there.
That's what I love, and even talking to my friends, like I'm in 5 NBA group chats where people are just venting or making arguments, and a lot of people's arguments are these analytics based arguments, and I respect analytics. I enjoy certain analytics. I'm not a stat head, and part of it's because the reason I love sports are the storylines behind them. Yes. Like, the reason I love is just like what is following along the rivalries and the actual like adversity that a guy takes to get here. So with the 2K League, I was like, I want to tell these kids stories. So the first year my unofficial title was the social media reporter, partly because these guys were not ready necessarily to just talk in front of a camera. Like, they did not have that media training we talked about NBA guys having through the AAU years. Right. And we literally, about half the size of this, we had a closet in the back of the NBA 2K League studio with a black background that we used to film kind of like a John Gruden's Coach's Corner with, that we'd go over. We'd have the highlights on a laptop. So we'd kind of, dub the audio over what we were watching on the laptop, and we'd break down what guys were doing. And that was my first, and I had a podcast that first year, and that was kind of my first foray into meeting these guys and just getting to know them and understanding their stories. And then season 2, I took the step as more of the insider, which was That was my title, which meant a lot of halftime show analysis, a lot of between games. Here's how the lineup's changing, stuff like that. But I filled in a play-by-play color sidelines, kind of like the Ernie Johnson hosting desk. So I was doing all that as well, and just kind of engulfing myself in this whole league, which I think is about to take a huge jump now in season 3.
You know we like to hook our listeners up from time to time, and we have a hookup for you today. So for the listeners of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. You can check out one of my favorite sports books, $40 Million Slaves, The Rise, Fall, and Redemption of the Black Athlete by William C. Roden. That's available on audible.com with hundreds of thousands of other books that you can listen to today. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/AHTT. Again, that's audibletrial.com/AHTT for your free audiobook.
I think it's interesting how it's grown. I'm fascinated by how it's grown. This is the question I have, right? Because I tend to see this as a generational thing. People who are older than me, right? So older than 36.
Yes.
Let's give them 10 years older in that 46 plus range.
Okay.
And I get this sometimes.
Baseball
from other
fans.
People. They look at me playing video games. I still play video games as a 36-year-old, not as much as I used to.
My brother does too.
They still look at it as something childish, right? Then you have the folks who maybe might be in my range. Some of the people, I don't think all the people, maybe look at esports as, why would somebody watch other people playing video games, right?
Yeah.
And that they get paid for it and they train and they put this. There's still this kind of stigma. I don't even know what I call it around that we look at the people who are in esports. Do you think that's changing? I feel like it's shifting, right? As we get younger and attitudes toward video games are shifting. But like, how do you feel it's changing in terms of how the league will grow, and how important is that for the league to grow?
Well, I think generationally, everything, it chips away. I remember thinking as a kid, and again, I'm 26, like, am I going to play video games my whole life? Yeah. And now what I'm realizing is I will for sure have a video game system as long as possible in my life. I'm not going to necessarily play to the level that the quantity that I played once upon a time.
Yeah, life changes that for you.
Yeah. You have other obligations in life that, come into play. But I think that, like you said, 36, it's more common to still be playing. 26, it's more common to still be playing with your friends maybe or something like that. And then 16, it's even more. And so we were talking about this before, and it's the example that I always use. I was born 93, 2006, Madden NFL Nation, starts on ESPN. I was so hyped. And it was, that sweet spot of 5:30 or something on ESPN2. It's like I'm done with homework. Like, I got to check this out before dinner.
I was never done with homework that early.
You're efficient, Jeff.
Depending on the day. Maybe I took a break.
I got home. I was watching Pokemon, bro. Like, because Pokemon came on like 4. Anyway.
But watching that, I'm like, I love Madden. Like, listen, Madden was the game. In the
2000s. They had the Madden Bowl with players playing against other players.
So I was like, I want to see the best dudes play Madden. Yeah. And every time they'd show the score and the guys having a handshake after the game or like the last play. And I'm like, wait. Now we know, being in this industry, they had a scripted for 23 minutes of television. No one was letting them put on, 4 hours of content. There was no TV channel. There was nothing to do. That was the first step. But at the time I was like, I just want to see them play. Where can I see them play? Now these kids grow up. I want to see someone playing NBA 2K. I want to see someone playing Fortnite. I want to see someone playing League of Legends right now. All right, fire up Twitch. I want to see the best highlights from the last week. All right, type it into YouTube. They grow up.
Or stream it yourself.
They grow up with all of this in their ethos that we didn't, in our 26, 25, 25?
25, yeah.
We just missed it, I feel like.
Yeah.
We just missed that boom. So I understand it, and I understand that, like, for these guys, the same way that we grew up watching sports or watching movies or watching anything that you could snap your fingers and do, that's what they've grown up with.
Yep.
So for esports, that's why it's growing. That's why it's such a common thing, and people don't necessarily understand it who don't have the access that they had, because they can't put themselves in their teenage mind. Like, even if let's say you're 31 and you loved Mario Tennis or something at the
Right.
time, or on Nintendo 64. It's like maybe if Twitch was around and that was the game, people
absolutely
would
would
have
have
been popping with it.
You know why?
And Twitch kind of was around back then. It was just Justin.tv? Isn't that what
Right,
it was
I remember
10 years
that,
ago?
yeah.
But I remember, it's funny that you bring this up because I remember watching, I think their names were New Legacy, and I think I still follow them on YouTube, but they were these guys who were very early in this, and they used to stream basically WWE gameplay, whether it was old
there you
games
go,
or
back to
whatever,
wrestling.
but they were hilarious. Like, they were just funny, doing dumb stuff all the time, and I was in high school. I remember watching them stream an entire season of Here Comes the Pain, where they were using, I think it was Charlie Haas, and it was just funny and ridiculous. And there, the whole thing, there was a chat room. They would play until, however late it was, 3 a.m. and things like that. And I remember actually watching this because I'm in high school, and I'm like, other than play basketball, I wasn't doing much else.
Well, see, I think that's the point Jeff makes, right? Like, no matter how old you are, whether you're a video gamer or not, look, when I was 16, I spent tons of time playing video games. Through college, I spent as much time as I can with my roommates. We were playing Madden, and so that
College
was kind
is
of
the peak of
your video game, right? Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And
Yeah.
I played a lot of Madden in that time, and then I think like shortly after college, that's when the Madden show came out. And I still watched that at that time because I found it fascinating to watch. I was like, I want to see the best people play Madden, right? So I think it's very interesting. The other
And spoiler alert, if you saw Ballers, esports had a role in that final season as well.
I didn't watch the final
have to-
season.
you
I'm
have
like
to-
4 to 5 episodes in, but I was gonna say there's an
Well, that's not like a real spoiler, but
Yeah.
you'll see what actually happens. But esports does get involved in even that.
There's an Entourage episode from I think 2004, 2005 where Jerry Ferrara's character Turtle plays in a fight night tournament. So that's that goes back to,
Now, you want to get me hype about a game.
Now, because tournaments at that time when I was graduating college, tournaments were still out there existing. You had Madden tournaments. Obviously, I'm a Street Fighter player too. A lot of Street Fighter tournaments have been going on
back
for
in the
years.
day, Pokemon had these tournaments. This was in like the early 2000s
Yeah,
or
so
the mid 2000s.
people have always been
People
playing
would
for
go
money.
to like the Pokemon store in the city. They would get cards and play each other. And Yu-Gi-Oh had tournaments
It was
too.
harder to put on because you
Yes.
had to get
Right.
the
It was
equipment.
it was even more niche.
That's a good point.
It was even more niche than it is now. But now with social media, and because that's the demographic that's really going to utilize social media to push these things, now you're seeing it grow in the way that it should.
So another generational question I have, Jeff, is what I find interesting too about, because you do stuff with the 2K League, right? Especially for you because of your age. You're of the age where
I'm washed. No.
No, you're not. No, you're not washed, man. You're of the age where, for you, 2K has always been that basketball game, right?
Kinda.
Well,
I think it's.
Are you guys old enough that when Live
NBA
was
Live
actually a
NBA
good
Live
game?
was the game in the 2000s.
It was the game.
Okay,
It was
yeah.
the game. And
So-
for me going to school in 2011, that was when I shifted to 2K.
That's when I
Was-
I shifted
with
earlier.
with Jordan on the cover.
So
That
I
was
actually shifted earlier because the first game I ever had for the original Xbox, because I first got my original Xbox in 2004, I was 10 years old, was NBA Live 2004 with Vince Carter on the cover. I had NBA Live up until 2007, and then I remember seeing that 2K was cheaper. Chris Paul was on the cover, who I really liked because I'm short. And the game, the reviews were just better, and I was like, NBA Live always had glitches, so I was like, let me try this out.
Yeah,
so 2K8,
I switched
shifted.
that same year as you.
And then it was
I
right
switched that
after
same year.
that, I think I noticed the shift when maybe it was 2K10, because that was the Kobe year. And that was the 10-year anniversary, and Kobe had the golden cover and all this stuff. I think that was when it really started to shift.
I've always wondered that because you did play some live, and the reason that it popped in my mind for this question, I remember the last time, I can't remember the year right now, the last time the All-Star Game was here in New York, I went to cover
2015
an event in Brooklyn for News 12, and they had like this lounge. They had like a gaming lounge where people could come and play, and I'll never forget this. I walk into the lounge and there are 2 TVs. Now, there's an Xbox. There's 4 TVs: Xbox, PlayStation, and one has live and one is 2K.
Oh, I
And whether it was the Xbox with the 2K or the PlayStation 4 with the 2K, everybody were at those, and nobody was at NBA Live. And for me, it was just like, as somebody,
I've seen that at
Live
the
was my
NBA
first
store.
basketball game. NBA Live 95. I'm dating myself here. NBA Live 95 on the Super Nintendo was my first basketball game. to see nobody play it, and now that 2K is kind of just this brand that's around the league, like, is there even an NBA? I'm asking a question. Is there an NBA Live league?
No,
So
NBA.
no.
NBA Live is not even coming out this year. They released a statement
NBA
saying
Live,
that they're not going to come out.
I didn't
this
even
year.
know that.
They
think
postponed the
they're
release and then they just canceled.
But everybody is. And there was a year also. I think it was 2011 or whatever. That this is where the shift really, like, you really notice it, and it might have been that year, because I remember there was a demo that came out for NBA Live. Kevin Durant was scheduled to be on the cover. In the demo, you could shoot around with Kevin Durant. The song that was playing the entire time was "The Plan" by J. Cole, still one of his best songs, most underrated songs. The game never came out, and they kept pushing it back. I don't think the game never came out, or it may have come out on mobile only. That was it, and that's when 2K was over, son.
So you just answered a couple questions, because I did not know that Live was done. Didn't know that, and there's no Live league.
But people think that they're probably gearing up for the NCAA return, because now that there's those rules, and
they got to do something. But how strong is the 2K brand right now that it has its own league?
Yeah.
Kids have been immersed in this for a long time, right? There are kids who've grown up where it's just been 2K for them.
Yeah.
So first of all, back to the original, the Live in the 2000s and stuff. It was so easy. I think for me, it was so easy it made my life easier to tell my mom, like, anything EA Sports, that was what I wanted. You know, I think it was like, and people had that EA Sports, like, EA Sports dominated so many of the sports titles that it was so easy to just, like, be an EA Sports lifer and, like, basically have the whole everything around. But then there was this almost EA Sports and Take-Two Interactive went to battle. If you remember, Take-Two purchased the whole baseball rights, and that's MVP Baseball all of a sudden, which was like the greatest baseball game, was done, and they tried to do college baseball. No one knew who college baseball players were. That didn't work. So, and that, by the way, Take-Two doesn't even do a baseball game. It's only MLB The Show, which is only on PlayStation. So really, there's no game.
The greatest baseball game ever.
So you have that. You have EA Sports kind of runs 2K out of the NFL market. Remember the TO cover, the ESPN NFL.
That is
2K5,
still the greatest football game ever. I don't care what anybody says. RIP NFL 2K5.
So they go to bat.
Better than Madden. It's not.
2K5 is better than every Madden that has come out.
It's not.
I'll fight you.
They're tugging back and forth.
Yes.
In both of those.
Yes.
And the college games. They both had college games that went back and forth.
Yeah, 2K, yeah. And EA Sports got that too, because then March Madness became NCAA basketball 09 and 10.
With basketball, where Take-Two gets a lot of credit is they recognize the online element becoming a bigger thing, and they recognize that the way to grab the community was to create a community. And what they did was they created, eventually they created sort of ways that you could play 5-on-5 Pro-Am mode, which is what the league is based on. So people started creating their own teams the same way in, like, Call of Duty, you're creating your team that you're playing with.
Right.
People started doing that for NBA 2K. And then around that 2015 time, which NBA Live didn't have a game one year, like you were talking about, they ended up coming back with a game. They introduced what they call the community, with the park. And you can basically create a character that you're showing off to the world, whether it's what he's wearing, what his traits are and stuff, beyond just you're my player that's local on your own. You're showing your friends who your player is, and you're going around to all of these, literally a digital community. And when they did that, that's when I think that's what makes the league possible, because people just that's how they find their friends. They're like hanging out in the virtual community, and it goes so much further than being just a basketball game. And that's why you're able to build an esport, because there's so much loyalty and camaraderie amongst people who don't even know each other, that now you have this grand thing that NBA Live just didn't invest in.
That's great. And I think it's interesting, because I haven't even thought about the online.
Let me say this
how
too.
That was a downfall of NBA Live.
And I had so NBA Live, when they would come out, they would do this thing after, probably when they get to Christmas, you could find the game for like $3. So, and I'm not even joking, it was like $3.99.
You're talking about recently.
This is recent. This is very recent. So I bought last year's because they had the WNBA before 2K also added that element. So now it's really over for them, right? So I got that for the WNBA feature. And I noticed that they have an online thing as well, but it's not nearly as elaborate. Like 2K has My Team and all this stuff, and people love that as well.
They bought things like they got the rights to use Rucker Park in their game, and 2K doesn't have that.
Yeah, I saw that. Yep.
But was like, is that enough for people to buy NBA
They got
Live?
Dykeman also. But no one...
No, because you know what it
doesn't-
comes down to is the gameplay in 2K has been better for quite some time.
Yes.
There's been less glitches. So anything that Live is added on or EA's added on has always seemed pretty gimmicky. And for me, when I made the switch, and I love basketball games. I've always loved it since a kid. It was about the gameplay, and the gameplay was just so much tighter that's why I switched. And I think when you add the other stuff, and as they expanded with the way social media and things were expanding and creating a community in the parks, you're right. That had a huge impact in it just taking off and going elsewhere. So like esports, especially around basketball gaming, it's huge now. And I used to sit and watch. This is why I'll tell people who are anti-esports and try to criticize it. Everybody, people of my generation, even older, you would still sat around and watch other people play games. All you're doing now is watching it either online or you might go to a stadium or arena and watch this being played. And it's not that bad if the competition or quality of play is good. So, you know, I grew up in an era where people were going to see Street Fighter. People play Street Fighter at the arcade and watch people play. I used to crowd around and watch it for hours when I didn't have money. So you will do it when you can even afford it and pay the money. And I think people are kind of anti it, but they don't realize they've kind of been doing some elements of voyeurism in gaming sports for quite some time.
Well, I think
esports needs to come back with a fight night game and make a league on that.
He would love that.
Oh my
I
god!
think I would be down with it. I played a lot of
Because
fight
that
night
because
in
that,
college.
that's what we need. I think in order for esports to take the next step, we need more tension.
Violence.
Yes,
Oh,
we need
God.
more tension.
Jeff. This is a whole other thing. I don't know if you want to get into us. What I want to ask
There was almost a fight in the 2K League game though.
really
I have no comment.
okay. We'll talk about that all.
I'll show you the video. Off
So
there.
you sound before we get to freelancing, sounds to me like you being immersed in this for quite some time, reporting, doing all the storytelling.
Oh, boy.
You really like where this industry is going as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Well, do you?
Well, I
No, I'm talking specifically about the esports industry.
Oh, okay.
So-
okay.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second.
well, I mean, there's a couple of things to on that point, and also why people I think are so negative about esports. I think there's a group of people out there that are like, people need to get off the couch. You know, this is just like esports is just people staying on their couch and not doing physical activities. First of all, how much exercise can you do in one day? Like, people aren't just out there. They're not professional athletes doing 5 hours of exercise every day.
Right.
Do 45 minutes and you're good.
So you're doing this is an activity. This is an activity that also for a lot of people has taught them friendship, camaraderie, teamwork, and things along those lines. And the story I always go back to is a player who was on Knicks Gaming. He's right now he'll re-enter the draft. His name's Idris the Goat. He was growing up originally in Detroit, and he wrote about when the Knicks were in the finals in season 1. New York Times has all his quotes that he basically said, like, video games. His parents got him a video game system, and he got it, and he was in his basement, and playing video games kept him off the street in inner city Detroit. And he's like, so anyone that wants to bash me for basically not being outside, it's like video games saved my life in that sort of way. Yeah. And that's where I think people just don't understand what an outlet video games provide as an activity, especially in the inner city, and especially because of that NBA element. The NBA 2K League tilts definitely with a lot of kids who come up from very diverse backgrounds.
That's interesting too, because it also makes you have to think that, you know, everybody's background isn't the same, right? So what esports or playing video games, like you're saying, might mean to someone else in one place where they might not want to go outside because it's really not safe for them to be outside, could legitimately save their life. And I'll listen to what that young man had to say. Yeah, I'm sure it's on point with that.
Yeah. Brian Mazik, who's from Forbes, said that the 2K League is the most diverse sports league, was what he called it. But in terms of how the league is going, we're talking about that. I think that there is such a long-term, and so now we have, for those who don't know, by the way, we haven't even talked about this, the NBA 2K League in itself is now 22 NBA teams who have league affiliates, and the 23rd team is Gen G, which is an esports organization, has a team. So you've got 23 teams, you've got 22 of the 30 NBA teams that have bought in. These guys, 6 guys on each team, 5 guys play at once. They all train in their home cities, and then from there they then come to competition, whether it's in New York. We had two tournaments last year in Vegas and Orlando. So there's that sort of professional element to it, and these teams buying in, and now it's on Twitch and YouTube, and I think the publicity and the acceptance continues to grow. And I think that there's a poise. There's also things that you just learn in how the game is presented and how guys' stories are told that I think you're going to see. And, it's taken a little bit of proof of concept. But the also beautiful thing about the NBA is from a sponsorship perspective, you have a lot of sponsors who buy into the NBA who buy into all 4 leagues. Like Adam Silver says, there's 4 leagues, the NBA, WNBA, G League, and 2K League. Yeah. So you now have this infrastructure in place for this league to take. It took a jump to season 2, and now to take kind of third time's a charm. Like season 3 just seems prime for a more national, a more international flavor and a greater sort of cap to this league.
And there was also a jump before because not every team had their own 2K team in season 2.
Yeah, so it went
in
from
season 1 and season 2 it went from 17 to what?
21. Now we're at 23, but only one more. So 22 of them are NBA teams.
Okay.
Could you explain to people how the draft works for players who are playing, 2K, how they get seen, how that works, their visibility, and how they can be drafted?
So so for example, for this year, for season 3, there was already a tryout process. Now the NBA 2K League Combine, we're taping this on Sunday the 17th. Tomorrow the Combine opens for the first time. So if you qualified for the Combine. Yeah, for today. Today, if this is being released, the Combine for those. So unfortunately, if you didn't try out already, sorry, the season 3 wheel has started.
Breaking news.
But the Combine starts today, which is more of a narrowed down field from the open tryout. It's hard to judge, but there's a lot of statistics that every time you try out certain statistics, and the league has gone above and beyond since season 1 because they felt like some guys were being frozen out, right? Because you're just trying to get your points. So now there's different sort of usage rates and stuff that are being factored into this. So a guy who gets frozen out doesn't hurt him. It's kind of like, what was your usage rate with the ball? And so they'll go through that process, and the coaches and everyone is trying to watch as many streams and watch as much film as possible. Then there's going to be, that field is going to be narrowed down to a draft pool that's done by the league and some of the coaches and players and whoever else is involved with that committee. And then there'll be the actual draft, which we don't call it an entry-level draft because some of the players, anyone who was not retained by their teams from last year, automatically go into that draft pool.
So they can get drafted
They can get drafted again. And it's very similar if guys know how the Big 3 worked.
Yep.
It's very similar in that sort of way.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because the problem is you're starting a new league. Like you can't, and guys aren't signing long-term contracts yet. So you have to be able to cycle through. And this guy, you can protect. There's going to be an expansion draft probably every year for the first 10 seasons.
There's going to be another expansion draft.
So you have to keep doing the cycle where you protect this amount of guys, these amount of guys before the expansion draft. Expansion draft happens. Now you can retain these amount of guys before the next draft, and then not everyone is. No team will remain intact.
Right.
And guys will go back into the draft pool.
Gotcha. How much? I'm sure people would like to know too. How much money can you make being a professional 2K League player?
So season 2, and it'll change for season 3 because now you got 2 more teams, more sponsors and such. Season 2, retained players made $39,000, first round picks $37,000, everyone else $35,000 for a 6-month contract, and then on top of that there was a $1.2 million prize pool for spread around 4 tournaments, including the finals. So the guys, for example, a guy that got retained by T-Wolves Gaming, which won it all and did well in other tournaments, didn't win other tournaments, probably I would guess made somewhere around $80,000 for that, $80,000 to $90,000 for that 6 months.
That's
a
nice
great
for 6
6
months.
So it's an awesome 6 months. A lot of these guys, listen, some of these guys are 30 years old raising a kid. Then you've got 19-year-olds who are in college and are going to come out of college with a nice chunk of cash or their student loans paid, things like that.
Yeah.
So, there's different sides of the spectrum for who's doing what with the money. But, for a league just starting and trying to get off the ground, and guys can make sponsorship money or they can do appearances, they can do anything. There's no cap on that.
Good. No, good. They're not running like the NCAA. Good to know.
A new daily fantasy app for prop bets is here, and it's called Thrive Fantasy. Forget the old school way of DFS. Thrive Fantasy has streamlined the drafting process and eliminated the need to do unnecessary hours of research by using only top-tier athletes. That means no more salary cap. You just build your lineup around a list of prop bets. Here's how it works. For each contest, you choose 10 of the 20 prop bets plus 2 ice picks that protect you from any late scratches or postponed games. Each unique prop has an over and under point value assigned to it, and you will be rewarded that value if the prop is correct. So for example, if Tom Brady throws for over or under 250 yards, the less likely the prop is to occur, the more points the choice will be worth. You build your team score around the amount of correct prop bets you select. It's easy to play, so just check out the Thrive Fantasy link in the description of this podcast and get in the game with Thrive Fantasy today.
I want to get into industry stuff because all of us have navigated as freelancers in this game.
Mm-hmm. How many gigs have you had in the last few years?
Well, I mean, count. So I posted about this recently.
Dexter's
on
got
Twitter.
like 30.
Not a true number, but
no, I think it is a true number.
Wait, how many gigs I've had in my career?
Yeah.
I don't know that number.
It's probably a 30.
It might be like 30.
Look, I've already had 15.
So I quit my full-time job a month,
that was
a year,
post-game.
a year, and today's Sunday, a year and 3 days ago.
Which was
I was senior editor with my title at the post game.
At the post game, right.
So in that time, and I don't know how
senior editor at 26.
I mean, I just kind of said, hey, could I move up from associate to senior? Yeah, whatever. Like it was in tight. It wasn't. Trust me, it wasn't. In salary.
I mean, look, if you could get it, I mean, shoot.
You just had that name. It was like,
it was like, oh, look at this, you know. Which, by the way, things happen you see things on LinkedIn. You know, take everything with a grain of salt.
I mean,
amen to that.
Listen, we've seen senior titles get passed around a little more frequently these days.
Point taken. There.
So in that last year, and so I don't know how you guys do it. I have an Excel spread or a Google Sheet spreadsheet that I have everything from the last year. Like every time I do something, I have like the months and I have the company because I want to also I got to keep track for tax purposes.
So it's kind of like a personal resume.
That's
almost?
what I do for that.
I don't look at it as a resume. I look at it as I'm trying to keep track of how much I'm getting paid and who owes me money.
Oh, wait.
Who owes me money?
Hold on. I have one of those on a Microsoft document. The name of the document is just a $sign. That's it. So, which I'm sure doesn't surprise you at all.
Doesn't surprise me at all. I'm also glad you guys are doing the right thing.
It lists all the company, how much I've made, how much I'm owed, all that stuff. So fellow freelancers out there,
it's a good thing to do.
Or independent contractors, listen, do that.
So I would say in that document, I probably have about 25 entities of some sort that I've had a conversation with that it looked like I could get paid something for, and probably 10 to 15 in the last year I've done something for. Now some of that is I did one article, you know, some of it like
that counts.
Like the 2K League stuff, which is probably the bulk of things in the last year, is a lot more. You know, those numbers there's a lot more digits in what I'm putting in there than some other stuff. Yeah. But I have probably dipped my feet into 10 to 15 different pools in the last year. There's some things that, like, you know, I've done background production help, right? I've written for one conference sort of panel event. I did kind of for them. I organized every single panel and topics and things like that. I didn't flaunt that on social media because frankly, that's not what I want to do. But it was a nice, you know, 2 to 3 weeks of work that helped me that month when I had a dead time. So you got to be hustling around and doing all the, you know, that extra stuff and everything. To me, everything adds up. And to me in freelance, it is like, so I took this jump a year ago and I said, there was stuff going on with the 2K League and there was stuff that I had so many conversations with people where they're like, yeah, we should work together sometime. And I knew I had an exclusive contract. And I said, I'm 25. Like, when am I going to, if I don't take this chance now, when am I going to do it? So I said,
look, when I left St. Francis, it was the same thing. And it was about a year ago also.
Well, I think you're also interesting because you did it right out of college. My mentality was
2 years after.
Okay, because I built up I tried to build up my network. I tried to go to every single networking event I could, you know, connect with everyone. It was the same formula. Meet. Here's my business card. Connect on every form of social, you know, but not be too creepy. Don't go rush in. Like, don't do Facebook until you're really,
I just do the Twitter handle. Twitter,
maybe
Instagram.
Maybe Instagram. Try to do LinkedIn. But probably so I did all that, and then I said to myself, I was like, I feel like I have reached a point where I have enough connections out here that I can make a living for the next year. And this is, you know, and even doing it after a few months, I was like, I don't want to raise kids on this one day. Like, you know, it's a scary sort of world. And it's something that has tested me in the last year mentally more than I think anything has, because sometimes you're like I tell people, June and July, my most lucrative months. I was like, I'm killing it. And in the back of my head, I was like, this stuff's going to run out soon.
Yep.
Right? Because we were doing the DraftKings MSG show.
Oh, yeah.
And I was doing the 2K League. And in my head, I'm like, but this is going to run out. And then August, I took a week. I was like, I'm going on vacation. I had such a great time. Which is nice that you can do
when you can freelance.
Great thing that you could do. And then I came back, and I was like, I knew there was, kind of. And August and September ended up being my least lucrative months. Since college, I had my 2 most lucrative months and then my 2 least lucrative months. And it's something that you have to understand, like you're not. And I remember I went for a run one day, and I'm walking down the street, and kids got out of school. I'm like, those kids made as much as I did today, and there's little things like that you think, but then something hits, and you're like, you realize, you were working towards something, and you realize that you have to also make yourself available to get certain things. There are so many things
and a lot of your friends don't understand that.
Well, there were certain things that I couldn't get when I was full time. That I had conversations. It's like, no, man. Like, if you're gonna be if there's too much of this legal stuff with the exclusivity, I'm getting that, pronouncing that right. And there's too much with your schedule. You can't say stuff in advance. So I'm like, I need to just give this a go and make myself available and try to. And the other cool thing, and I know I'm getting long-winded here, the other cool thing with me was that I was like, so many areas that I haven't gotten into, I want to get into now.
Yes.
Like, there are so many things. So I circled esports as something where I'm like, I can do more of esports, sports betting / fantasy. I can do more of that now. We haven't even touched on this, but golf was something that I was like, I'm a golfer. I recognize that golf is always looking for young talent that has a little more personality and can bring some into the game. Like,
not as dry as what we normally get.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say anyone.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say anybody's name. But golf is a very.
I did a golf episode of DraftKings tonight with him.
He did.
No pun intended. I teed him up. Yeah, you didn't see this? I didn't show you this. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I introduced the topics. Golf? I hosted it and all that stuff. And I was like, Jeff, I find that, Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, who's gonna do better at the Masters? Oh, I know you like Dustin Johnson.
Okay, pull this up for me.
It was at the reason. So my co-host was Alex Myers from Golf Digest. He was there at the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. Yeah. So Pebble Beach is like, I explain it. It's like the Madison Square Garden of golf. So if you look at it, it's Brian and I with a green screen behind us, with the course behind us, and we're talking about stuff.
Course. So it's. I said a friend who does video for the PGA. He was shooting this.
Pebble Beach is my favorite course in PGA Tour 2006.
See, it always comes back to a video.
Listen, that's how people learn about so many things, though.
But I'm gonna tell you something.
How much soccer do you know from FIFA?
Oh my God! Like, this is how I learned about the salary cap, though. Like, no lie, making trades.
No, that's dope. That's
making
dope
trades in NBA Live. Like, I was trying to get Amari Stoudemire. I was using the Knicks in 2005. I was trying to get Amari Stoudemire in the Knicks. And I was trying to use Channing Frye, and I was like, wait, the salaries don't match. So how do I put...
It's on a rookie deal.
Maybe I could use Nate Robinson. And no, I like Nate Robinson because we're
now
both
he
short.
thinks he's a GM.
You know what I'm saying?
Everyone does after playing a few.
Oh, I could legit be in the front office.
So you're doing that's the Knicks for sure. You're doing the golf thing.
So I was doing golf stuff too, and with golf, I look at it as, especially. I learned in a marketing class once the most impressionable age is 13 to 21, right? Because that's when kids, teenagers, they might create brand loyalty for life.
I had just a joke, but I'm just gonna keep it to myself.
Yeah, keep that one to yourself. With golf, because people just like, your body starts breaking down maybe, or you start paying attention to more golf because it's just a slower sport and you're more relaxed on the weekend stuff. Like 25 to 35 is more of that impressionable age. So I also see it as like, I've been into golf my whole life, but now I especially I see my friends getting it who never gave a crap about golf are now paying attention. So I find it, interesting that there's a conversation more around our age than there was for something like esports, which
gambling helps that too.
Gambling helps a lot of everything that we've talked about.
Yes, that is true.
But think about it. 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't a lot of fantasy analysis being done, and now there's a whole new avenue for that we've taken advantage of, actually.
I think when I hear you say all this stuff with freelancing, it's great that you're One thing I'll say about freelancing is I think it allows you to do something you said, which is take advantage of all the opportunities that you can that can further your career and look at different ways that you can go. So you're not just linear. You're not like, hey, I'm just the esports guy, right? Like you don't just want to be that. You want to do more than
and
that.
you also mentioned that like we were talking about this not too long ago where you saw after July the storm was coming.
Oh yeah.
And this is what I prepped for when I was doing side hustle. I was like, all right, I'm gonna start putting this together in these months, finish it in August, and it'll be all out August and September. And I knew once that ended, I was like, all right, because the U.S. Open was still earlier that month, so I was there covering that. But once side hustle ended in September, I was like, October's not gonna be a good month, man.
No.
And there's no preparing you for that in freelancing. Sometimes, like even when you see it, it's mental toughness. It's getting through it, the days, and understanding, like you said, that what you're working towards, even the small things you're doing or the things you're not paid as much for, is getting you to where you have to go. So that's kind of, I think, what I can say as a freelancer. If somebody did it for a long time, just did where it was on my only thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's mentally tough, man.
Well, I mean, I've never.
The mental part of it is harder.
Here's the difference between. I've never had a full-time job yet. Like still to this day, I still
for a
haven't
long
had
time
one.
without it. So
I haven't had one yet because St. Francis I was part-time. Other gigs that I've had were either part-time, freelance, W-9. You know how.
But see,
it
I
is.
actually think it's harder.
Like-
I think it's harder to do what Jeff did.
Yeah.
I think it's harder to come from having something full-time like you did out of school, feeling that sense of security and be saying, you know what, I'll be comfortable here. But you said, no, let me jump and be a little bit uncomfortable.
How I felt was that I wanted to go above and beyond and work hard, and I wasn't getting paid for it. And that was the part that drove me, where I was like, also, you know, how often are you going to be in your 20s feeling like you can just grind it out and that you don't have any obligations? Like you're not, there's no one you're rushing home to. You're not providing for a family. Like you can go as much as possible. So for me, I was like,
Yeah, and if you're a wild boy, you could just wind up with a kid, and all that has to be different.
Then
You know what I'm saying?
life
Like,
changes real quick.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Jeff's like, that's not going to be me.
I was like, oh,
Use
that ain't
condoms,
gonna-
kids. Use condoms.
I just saw like yeah, it was, the scary part was, you know, there were certain things that I, like a lot of times I don't plan anything. People are like, can you do this in a month? I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing that
all
day.
the time.
Like
I
I
don't
have
know
no
if-
idea.
I
I
don't
get
know
asked
what's
that all the time. See, but
Like I want to be ready if something comes up.
exactly, because it's like, yo, what are you doing on the 29th or whatever? If it's not work, then I'm usually like, I don't know yet. I'll like get back to you. If it's not like we're gonna do the podcast, or you know, if it's not a gig, like, yo, MSG wants me to come in a certain date, then yeah, okay, cool. But if it's like to chill, to go to this, or even if it's a wedding and
It's
know
hard
whatever.
to plan stuff. And it's hard to even take certain things in work because you don't know if you take that and then something else comes up that could be better.
No,
You're like,
especially if it's gonna give you like a few hundred that day or whatever it is, or even more.
It's hard. It's hard to. That's another part of the mental toughness too, right? It's like hard trying to weigh that in, and there's pressure on that because you're also like, well, I need to take this because I need to eat and I need to keep this kind of money train going, but I don't know how that's going to work.
And it's on your thing. Well, he was about like when you're doing well freelancing, like we learned over the summer, you got to kind of tell yourself like, all right, don't think that this is going to be the cash flow every month.
Oh yeah,
you know, don't spend it all now.
And the IRS knows. Like,
start.
Trust
thinking
me,
about
I ain't
this.
ready for tax season, bro.
Start. Well, we're gonna have a tax day. Me and you. We're gonna have to do these on together.
All right, let's go.
There, like you start thinking, okay, this is what I'm making 2 months here, but really I should be thinking of this is what I'll make in 3 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
And spread it out, and then okay, that's fine. I'm fine. Like I'm not I'm not through the roof, but I'm fine. So I think that like I've learned that. The other thing I just want to touch on is the doing multiple things. And so I appreciate that, like you're saying, that I'm keeping myself versatile. Like I'm not just doing esports. I'm doing sports betting, gambling. I'm doing golf.
I think that's literally the best thing you could be doing, Jeff.
Well, because I get some people are like, why don't you stick to someone? Or some people say, you know, specialists are the people that you hear it a lot. Just specialize in one thing. And to me,
no, don't put me in a box.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You can tell I hate that.
I just think they're wrong. Period. And the reason I'll say they're wrong, I'll let you finish your point. The reason I think they're wrong, Jeff,
it's a communal point.
Is it's not even just about journalism. I'll put it like this: journalism is no longer about specialization. If you believe that, you're lost.
Yes.
The game has gone so far from specialization. The game needs more people like Brian and you and even myself.
And you say
no,
yourself.
No, because
you're at a weather channel with a sports background. Yeah, come on.
And there's value.
I gotta
in
be
that,
his hype
right?
man sometimes.
But it's also. I remember telling him when he graduated college, okay, yeah, you have to learn to be good in the air and do a podcast, as you can do too, or write, or be on camera. When I just wanted to do broadcasting like you coming to school, but I never just said I wrote at the paper at school. I did radio. All these things mattered to me doing what I'm doing today.
Of course.
So yes, the people who are telling you just to specialize in one thing, I'm sure they mean well. But I think they're wrong. I think they're completely wrong.
And if you were to specialize in one thing, you probably wouldn't have been able to do 2K League and DraftKings.
No. You might have got boxed in,
and
as he was saying.
I would get boxed in. I said, maybe I'd have a few thousand more Twitter followers because people would be like, okay, you're the guy. I'm really interested in this, and you're the guy for that. But
I've lost some net fans recently for that reason.
but I'm sure you have. But the long term potential, if you have if you're more versatile, is there. So
yes.
And for me, I felt like it's okay. Maybe there'll be a time one day where I'm like, all right, this is the field that I'm really need to focus more of my energy to. But to me, still being young, as I want to keep my options as open as possible. So I'd rather. And listen, you got to go the extra mile. That's the thing. Like maybe you just want to do basketball and you can just focus on basketball. But if you want to do basketball, football, baseball, hockey, golf, tennis, esport, you might have to work a little harder to understand all that. But there's an investment of your time into that.
Amen to that.
Or if you just want to tell stories and you don't care what the sport is.
Well, that's good. That's
that's the thing too. It's like sure, okay, basketball is probably my main sport, but then I also like MMA and boxing and wrestling and
anything with violence
and some baseball. I kind of like football, just the NFL, whatever.
We'll get to that.
But these are all things that you would want to cover. Why do you have to box yourself into one thing just to please whatever your Twitter follower base is?
No, and it's going to open you up to more. And also, I think one thing I just want to harp back on that Jeff said in this podcast is that and I thought that he was open-minded about the esports to see where it was going. But one thing I loved was that it's kind of the way I look at journalism. I love sports, but I'm a storyteller first. I am into the stories and the stories that can be told around it. I wouldn't be telling weather stories or combining weather and sports stories if I didn't think the stories were good there.
Yes.
And I think when that drives you, so I want to give kudos to Jeff. I think when that drives what you do, it makes you a better journalist, right? Because it's for you, it's about the stories first, and it's just going to lead you into the right direction with whatever you do. And if you keep that energy, it's going to work out all right, man.
Yeah.
It's going to work out all right.
And one last question on this freelance fund. Now that you're in this world, do you want to go back to full time anytime soon or whatever?
I don't want to anytime soon. I love having my options open, and I love the opportunity to jump on something and to meet. I've met so many people in the last year because you're not showing up and seeing the same people every day. Like you parachute in and you see someone, you meet someone. And by the way, this is just like career advice for people out there. Like someone, invest your time in people that, like, if you meet someone doing one thing, 3 years later, that person's going to be somewhere else. And now all of a sudden you're covering ground in multiple areas. And if they like what you did here, then maybe they're working actually for, a network or a publisher that you really want to work for. And who knows where they end up being. So I thought my network was big. And then in the last year, I've had the opportunity to build it even more just by meeting people, like being in places that I never would have imagined I'd be in. And so I want to keep doing that. Like I said, you have to monitor yourself and you have to know your worth and you have to know kind of be a realist about things, and it's seeing like where my life takes me. If one day a network wants to pay me X amount to do 3 different sports that they're doing and just keep me exclusive, and I have a family and stuff, like, then that might be all right, let's do it. Yeah. I got an office to go to every day and put pictures of my kids up and stuff like that. Like, this might feel better than me spending, hustling random hours and, going through this life that we're going through.
And also healthcare, because America sucks.
I will tell you real quick that one thing about freelancing, as you get older, you will realize it's a young man's sport.
Oh yeah.
I sound old saying that now.
But look, that's why we're doing it now.
That's why we're doing it. Exactly.
Which is why do it while you're young. You can't do it in the same way. Like, I still freelance and take other gigs, and I like the way I can do it now and move around it, even though sometimes it can be exhausting with what I do. But at least I think about when it was just what I was doing. doing it now at 36 and being a father, it's different. You've saw me do it for a good part of my life.
That's true.
So
Yeah,
you've seen me do it, and it's just it's tough. So
With a daughter, too.
The great thing I think Jeff is saying too is like, yeah, go for it while you're young. Do it while you're young.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's
and
like,
that's great.
Well, that's why I asked that, because we're in a similar boat, and I'm like, I mean, I would something full time, but it has to be right. Like, it just has to be right. My main thing, more than that, is just general stability. That's what it is.
All right, we're going to wrap things up for episode 99. We do a thing, Jeff, where if you don't know, 99, we take a number of an athlete who's worn 99, and we pick them for the cover of our artwork. Okay. So Brian always goes through the list of this. Brian,
this is the second to last time we're doing this.
This is a long list.
Yeah, we're going to start.
What's your sport, by the way? What's your favorite sport?
Oh man, I would probably say basketball.
Okay, because I'm intrigued to where you lean on this. Okay, go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna go through these quickly. Turk Wendell, Jason Taylor, Warren Sapp, J.J. Watt, Juvenile, Dan Hampton, Mark Gastineau, because 99 2000.
I got it.
Aaron Donald, Jay Crowder, Taco Fall, George Mikan, who I didn't know wore 99, Darko Milicic, Manny Ramirez, Aaron Judge, Hyunjin Ryu, Wayne Gretzky.
There's only 199, man. It's
I know.
Man.
I know.
I'm not even a big
Eric
hockey guy.
Okbangu. We used to play for the Jets.
Stop it. It's Wayne Gretzky, man. I got to give my vote to Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky's the most famous 99 out there. I mean, I knew you were going to read off a lot of defensive players.
Hold on. Which Wayne Gretzky? Because that matters.
Yo, you got to rock with the Edmonton Oilers, man.
Okay.
Got
There's
to.
been 4.
Yeah. You got to go with the Edmonton Oilers. Got to. Got to. Are you?
I thought you were going to say the Rangers, like we're in New York, but the Oilers is the classic.
Yeah, classic.
Like, I would go the white too.
Okay, we get that.
I feel like that's the cleanest.
The white clean. I like the clean Edmonton Oilers jerseys. Okay.
So. Damn, no votes for Juvenile?
Nah, man.
All right, fine.
No. We got to go. We got to go Wayne Gretzky.
I respect Warren, but Warren Sapp, I'm thinking about it a little bit.
New ending segment coming soon, guys.
Yes.
Wait till we get to the hundreds.
The hundreds. We got new stuff coming. All right, Jeff, we want to thank you. We had a great discussion about esports.
Ooh, yeah.
2K League. You can check out Jeff on MSG Networks. 2K League Insider.
Please at Jeff Eisenband, Twitter,
Jeff
Instagram.
Eisenband
Yeah.
On Twitter and Instagram. Please check out his work. It's fantastic. I'm going to be following it. I learned so much from this discussion. So thank you, man.
One last on the weather point.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking about this because we were talking about Ravel before.
Yeah.
Sports weather. That might be your corner.
Well, that's what I'm doing now. I've been doing a lot of sports weather stories. That's kind of my niche. Yeah, I'm gonna send you some of the stuff I've done.
Like
already.
I'm thinking it's like we'll talk about this off air.
We'll talk about it off air. But I've done like a bunch of sports weather. That's kind of my niche of what I do that nobody else is doing.
Yeah.
Somebody should take note of that. Yeah. All right, that's it for episode 99 of A Hotel Podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to us. Also, remember, follow Jeff Eisenband. You can follow us. Please be sure to rate, leave us a review, follow our content, extra content that we have on Patreon. That's it for Jeff Eisenband, for Brian Fonseca. Until next time, I'm Dexter Henry. Peace.